I was doing a little scroll on Instagram, of course, trying to forget about all the chaos that's happening in my everyday life and trying to escape and just drown myself in whatever Instagram has to offer. And I came across this clip.
There's a story about Elon Musk that I love that I tell my team all the time. He had a group of engineers on his plane, and the group of engineers said that the change in the business he needed to make was going to take them 6 months or a year to spin off. And Elon said, turn the plane around, we're going to go to the storage center directly, and we're going to fix the problem in 24 hours. And what do you think they did? They did it. It's this crazy idea that we make things more complex than we need because it makes us seem needed. And so I want you to think about this idea. Where in my life can I make things that seem complex a lot simpler?
So no matter what your opinion is on Elon Musk, this isn't about him. This is about what the messenger is trying to tell us. And it's this idea of simplicity versus complexity and how we try to create such complexity in our lives, especially when it comes to education. So in this video, I want to just get a little chatty with you, and we're going to talk about simplifying education. So I am going completely rogue today. I don't have a script. We're just going to chit chat a little bit about this idea of simplifying education. Because I've got to be honest with you, over my years of teaching and over the course of me being in this position as a training and consultation staff developer, working with schools, working with teams, working with individual classroom teachers, I see this more and more often inside of education. And it's this idea that we are doing so much. We are cramming information into students. We're trying to give them as much as possible within the school day because, of course, time is limited, right? So there's so much that we need to cover within this little bit of time that we have every single day and over the course of this 180 days that we have with them. And on top of that, we add things to our plates. Now, I was notorious for this. So back when I first went from kindergarten to 4th grade, I remember this like it was yesterday. I was very overwhelmed. I moved to a brand new state. I was in a brand new district. I was in a brand new grade level. I felt like I knew what I was doing as a teacher, which, by the way, side note, if you hear other noises, it's my dog in the background. But as I knew what I was doing because I wasn't a brand new teacher. I had been teaching for several years. And so I thought that it was going to be an easy transfer. But the reality was that I didn't really have a curriculum. I didn't really have a pacing guide that I needed to follow. I was honestly just kind of making things up as I was going along. And what I started realizing that I was doing is I would say, oh, here's a problem. Let me find this thing that's going to fix that problem. Oh, here's another problem. Now let me go online and find something to fix that problem. And so by the end of it, I was fixing problem after problem after problem after problem all along, creating a bigger problem of me trying to keep up with the Joneses. It's a real thing that happens in education. And it all comes from a really good place in our hearts as educators because we want to help kids. We want to do a really good job inside of our classrooms. We want to leave every day feeling successful. So we just keep adding things and we never take anything away because, well, we don't really know what to take away, right? So this idea of we make things so much more complex than what they need to be is a real problem in education. And I'm going to kind of transfer into a new topic, which is core programs, because I've got to be honest, I'm seeing core programs popping up like a wildfire. And it's all because of the science of reading, right? The C word happened back in 2020. Everything went chaotic. And then all of a sudden it was, we need the science of reading. We need structured literacy. We need to have a core program so that we're teaching phonics. And then that's when it all hit, right? So now we're being shoved with core programs in every single teacher's face, which it's like a love-hate relationship with core programs. But it goes back to this idea of simplicity and making things complex. Because if you look at core programs, they are the icon of complexity because they are the 10-mile long view. Recently, I was talking with a colleague of mine, and we were talking about core programs and just, how they are great in some ways because it provides you with resources. It gives you a pacing guide. It really does help to make sure that every single teacher is doing the exact same thing, or else you end up with inconsistencies and everybody just doing whatever they want, which happened in my case, right? So they're great in that sense, but the problem is that they just put activity on activity, a reading material, and they just keep adding to it. And they are so complex in that they give you this 10-mile long view, meaning you're just trying to put the pedal to the metal just to be able to keep up with that core program, which you don't ever really keep up with it because you can't teach 20 vocabulary words on top of reading 3 or 4 different types of text, maybe in some cases a new text every single day. And then you're supposed to spend 30 minutes on this, an hour on this, 60 minutes on this. They're just not realistic, especially when you have a really challenging schedule because everybody's schedule is a little bit different, which we can get into that whole can of worms on another date. So they are the poster child of complexity. And what we really need in education is we need simplification. And one of the things that I've said about bridging literacy, and back when I taught multi-age and I was really trying to simplify the process of education and the learning experience for my students, because I needed the simplification and the learning process and me teaching kids to be so much easier to wrap my brain around as an educator, right? Because I have to explain this stuff to kids. That one of our slogans is real simple learning. And we wholeheartedly believe in this idea of bringing in simplicity and finding the right things that we could be doing rather than trying to do all the different things. And so I see too often with teams, and when we're sitting down and we're talking about data and we're talking about, some of the things that they could be doing and some of those evidence-based practices, here's the thing that I hear often. Oh, okay, so we have an issue with phonics. Okay, so maybe we could do this activity. We can send this homework home with them every single day. Let's get our science and social studies teachers in this too. So maybe they could be doing some of these activities. Let's incorporate it into math. And it's like, whoa, how do you know which one's working? How do you know what strategy, what evidence-based practice that you are implementing is actually working? You don't, because you're trying to keep up with the Joneses. You have so many things happening that you're sitting there trying to juggle all these plates that when things start to fall or your teachers start to get burned out, you don't really know what's working. And then it feels like you're back to the drawing board, which is kind of what I feel has happened right now with the science of reading. So back when I first started teaching, right before that, I want to say core programs were super big emphasis. Core programs were in every single classroom, every school all around the district. And then I remembered that they slowly started to shift into that balanced literacy. So a lot of them started getting rid of their core programs. They were like, well, they are not authentic reading. Students are not going in for comprehension. And so then we started to see the push of balanced literacy. We saw Lucy Calkins getting pushed and more authentic literature being introduced, which we're not going into this whole can of worms of which of these practices you preferred. That's not this conversation because there's good and bad with all of them. As we started kind of transitioning, we're doing the exact same thing. It's like we flip sides in education so quick rather than looking at what are those evidence pieces that we can really confidently say work with students. All students, not just some students, every single student that walks into your classroom. We can't say that. Why? Because we've made education so complex. We've made it so flipping confusing that any teacher who tries to walk into a classroom doesn't know where to start. They don't know where to go. They don't know what to do. They don't know how often they should be teaching what, or when they should be teaching, or how they should be teaching certain things because of the complexities that we've built into this system. So I have to tell you, one of the things that I've worked on is in this like new role is I help teams look at data. And then with that data, they then have to think about their current practices. They have to look at what's happening with their core programs. What are they lacking with their core programs? What can we enhance with their core programs? We look at how to embed evidence-based practices to address certain areas of concern. And that has been the biggest aha for these teams, is thinking, wait a second, I only want to pick like one or two things that I want to be doing with these kids and do those really, really, really well. Because when I do those really, really well, then I'm going to see progress. I don't need to do all the other things that's out there because I want to track to make sure that this works. And so I'm going to bring up a word and it's going to trigger some feelings in you. Okay. The word, it's an F word. Careful. Fidelity. Okay. That brings out some feels in teachers. Fidelity. Why? Because fidelity for educators, and when I was in the classroom, it felt like, oh, fidelity, that wants to put me in a box. It's not going to allow me to be creative. It's not going to allow me, to be me as an educator. And it's going to really put me into constraints. And I don't want to do that. Like, I full blown believed that. But in reality, fidelity needs to have a mindset shift. Fidelity isn't about you as an educator. It has nothing to do with you as an educator, as a matter of fact. It has to do with whatever it is that you're implementing. And so it's a new little mindset shift that you have to make. And so if we think about it and we try to simplify this process, simplify education, and identify what are those like key strategies that I could be doing instead of trying to make things so flipping complex, what are those key things that I could be doing in my room? And how can I do them to fidelity? Because if I try to do them to fidelity, if I tell myself I'm going to do this for 10 minutes every single day, I'm going to follow this same process, I'm going to track it, I'm going to see how students do, then I can determine if it works or not. Because if it's not working, are you going to do it? No, you're not going to keep doing it. Why would you keep doing something that doesn't work, right? You want to do something that does work. And so instead, when we think about fidelity to a strategy, it has nothing to do with you as an educator. I don't know how much I can repeat this. It has everything to do with the strategy and knowing if that strategy works. Because if we don't do things to fidelity when it comes to a specific strategy, we will never know if they're going to work. Why? Because you have one teacher who's doing it maybe a couple of days. You have another teacher that's not really following that protocol. They found something else on Teachers Pay Teachers that they wanted to implement. And you have another teacher who decided that they're not doing it at all because they don't have time in their day to be able to do it, right? Which is where your admin comes in and says, okay, well, we're just going to add to it and keep filling things up. And then it feels like we're trying to do all the things and it burns us out. It overwhelms us. We are so over it by the end of the day because we're more focused on all the 300 million things plus the behaviors that are happening inside of those classrooms, right? And instead, if we could just make that small little mindset shift, I really and truly believe that if we could, as educators, say, you know what, I'm going to try this strategy out for 10 to 15 minutes. I'm going to track it. We're going to have conversations as a team about it, and we're going to decide if it works or not. If we could do that, I truly believe that we could simplify education. We really could. We could get rid of all the extra stuff that we're doing and truly simplify education to make it so much easier for us. And maybe, just maybe, if we could get rid of the complexities of education, we might actually enjoy our jobs. So I just wanted to throw that out there as an idea. But again, your feelings and thoughts about Elon Musk has nothing to do with this video, okay? I'm not here to say yay or nay on that man. Don't care about him. But what I do care about is that message, complexity. We make things so much more complex than what they need to be. And so I did a live series on this channel a few years ago. I'm going to link it for you in this playlist because it was a 10-part series. And I talked a lot about simplifying education and how that process of me simplifying the things that I was doing and trying to create connections for kids really started to work. So I invite you to go and start watching some of those. But what do you think? Like, what are your thoughts on this idea of education being so flipping complex? And do we need to start working instead of just adding things to fix them? Because we can't fix ourselves out of this. We have to start from the ground up. Can we simplify education to make it better for kids, better for our educators, and to create a sustainable environment of learning? Is that a possibility? I don't know. I don't know the answer. If I did know the answer to this, I would be a millionaire. I don't know the answer to this. So I would love to encourage a conversation around what you all think about this idea of complexities. Do you feel like your school is making things so much more complex? Do you personally feel like you've done that? I absolutely have made things very complex on myself until I decided that I was going to be a lazy teacher. Not lazy in that sense, but lazy in saying I want to simplify it to make it easier for myself and easier for my students to be able to keep up. Because here at Bridging Literacy, we go 10 miles deep. We focus on really digging deep into the learning, making sure that students have a solid foundation before we continue delivering the content itself. So I encourage you to start a discussion down below, and I would love to be able to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like to hear about the literacy instruction for upper elementary, this is the channel for you. It's totally free. You can hit that subscribe button. Also hit the notification bell so you can get notified when I upload a brand new video. And I would just so appreciate it if you could just give it a like, please. That would be great. Just helps me get it out there. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'll catch you all next time. Bye.